Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this meeting on the role of emerging economies in greening the world and the challenges faced in the process. I am pleased to see representatives from UNCTAD member states as well as distinguished participants from international organizations, the private sector and civil society. This conference was organized jointly with the Energy Pact Foundation, which brings extensive private sector expertise and experience on sustainable energy issues, and with the support of the Asian Development Bank. The partnership serves to underline the important role that the private sector already plays and will have to continue to play in the global efforts to achieve sustainable development and energy security. By collaborating, I believe that we will be able to facilitate a broad exchange of ideas, both during this meeting and beyond. At UNCTAD, we have long been concerned about the major global challenge of addressing climate change while advancing economic and social development. The science is clear that global emissions must fall, or we risk potentially catastrophic consequences. But the issues are complex. In addition to encouraging a global transformation to less carbon-intensive production methods, we have to take into account the principle of common but differentiated responsibility and its consequences for the distribution of the burden. Broad agreement must be achieved not just on the how much and how, but also on the where and who carries how much of the burden. It is therefore a truly global challenge. A sustainable solution must find a way to address climate change while at the same time respecting the development ambitions of millions of poor in the global south. Energy is at the heart of the development environment nexus. Energy is an essential component of human and economic well-being. Increasing access is vital to lift millions out of poverty. Electricity is essential for businesses to develop and expand, but at the same time, energy is the source of more than 60% of global CO2 emissions. Crucial then to sustainable development is the identification of alternative but affordable energy sources, as well as a transition to less energy-intensive activities. Possibly the greatest immediate challenge is for countries to reach an agreement on reducing carbon emissions. Advanced countries have been dragging their heels and are threatened to delay agreement on an enforceable deal for climate change until 2020. We cannot afford such a delay, and governments of the Global South are rightly protesting. In this context, I hope the negotiations at the 17th Conference of the Parties currently underway in Durban will make further progress. Of course, while the lead in building a more sustainable and inclusive world must still come from the advanced countries, the countries of the South also have a vital role to play. The efforts of the industrialized countries, even if they were to begin to match their words with deeds, are no longer likely to be sufficient to address pressing environmental challenges. Many countries of the Global South have already established strong growth trajectories, and their consumption levels and carbon emissions are increasing. Their new industrial prowess brings growing responsibilities. But these countries have also developed many initiatives to combat climate change. Indeed, many are at the forefront of technological development of renewable energy sources. Brazil's biofuels program has allowed the country to become the largest exporter of biofuels, now supplying more than 30% of all ethanol used as fuel in the world. Similarly, China has become a world leader in electricity generation through wind turbines. The development of renewable energy sources is also getting an increasingly attractive market. Indeed, according to a recent estimate, this year, new planned investment in renewable energies exceeded those in fossil fuel-based plants for the first time. More generally, the global market in low-carbon and energy-efficient technologies is projected to nearly triple from $800 billion today to 2.2 trillion in 2020. Thus, while the threat to our environment represents one of the greatest challenges, we also have an unprecedented opportunity in the transition to a low-carbon, resource-efficient economy. The state must play a key role to support private enterprise to engage in green practices, to reduce reliance on fossil fuels, and to advance the search for alternative energy sources. Some of the ways in which the state can support these efforts are discussed in the UNCTAD Trade and Innovation Report, which we will launch later this afternoon. This year's report identifies key issues in technology and innovation in renewable energy technology and proposes concrete recommendations for the wider use of such technologies for sustainable development and poverty reduction. Ladies and gentlemen, if we are serious about addressing climate change, we need to accept that business as usual will no longer work and a fresh approach is urgently required. Individual countries are not able to deal with the issues in isolation. Our approach to climate change requires a coordinated response on a global scale. We need to work together and have a dialogue across sectors and across countries between governments, the private sector, and civil society. Thanks. And so I see our conference here as part of this ongoing process of dialogue. Next year, many of us will meet in Doha in April for the UNCTAD 13 conference. And in June, there is the Rio +20 UN conference on sustainable development. Each of these will hopefully be a stepping stone to a more balanced economic, social, and environmental future. Let me conclude by emphasizing that we are extremely fortunate to have with us over the next 3 days eminent experts and influential policymakers from across the globe. This is a valuable opportunity to share experiences and ideas and to clarify ways in which we can take practical action to improve the future for our planet. I'm looking forward to an engaging discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Draganov. Mr. Deputy Secretary General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. As you all know, thousands of delegates at the Durban UN Climate Conference are engaged in a difficult but crucial talks and negotiations. One could ask then, why one more conference? And why this week? My conviction is that every conversation on energy, environment and development everywhere in the world is a building block and our collective and collaborative effort to redefine not only our economies but also our civilization. Sustainability is not only policy making, sustainability includes individual behavior change. My conviction is that being here today and interacting represents our participation, our support to the global green governance in the making. And sharing our views in this eminent Palais des Nations, at the heart of the multilateral system in Geneva, the world's capital of conference diplomacy, bears testimony of our profound attachment to a cooperative international community able to respond to daunting challenges of climate change mitigation, sustainable development and poverty eradication. We feel extremely privileged at the Energy Pact Foundation to co-organize with the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD, in partnership also with our friends from the Asian Development Bank, ADB. It's not coincidence that this example of public-private cooperation takes place here. Our foundation has always advocated that energy, environment and development issues must be tackled as a single global challenge. And in doing so, we have consistently tried to put issues under new perspectives. We have constantly defended that we call the Global South holds in many ways the keys of our future and will play an even greater and transformational role in our multipolar world. This is why we choose this year to highlight the role of emerging economies and South-South cooperation in the transition to a green economy, which, as stressed by UNCTAD Secretary General Dr. Supachai Panichpaki, encompasses some of the most important challenges we face today: eradicating poverty, improving our relationship with the environment, addressing the potential negative impacts of the climate change, and creating a new path for sustainable development. In this context, the historical role, the expertise, the guidance and the values of UNCTAD are more than ever relevant, necessary and useful. I would like to extend our thanks to UNCTAD, to its leadership, to its member states, to its staff, to the technical and security team, and last but not least to the interpreters who have welcomed us and contributed to make of this event an inspirational hub for discussion and new proposals. This afternoon will be marked by a very fractal and substantive assessment of the role of nuclear energy and by the presentation of UNCTAD's Technology and Innovation Report. I have the great honour and pleasure to welcome you warmly and to wish you a fruitful and enjoyable participation in this event. Thank you very much.